Welcome to our second lecture on nutrition. We're speaking about the nutrients that we need. And today we will be covering the third nutrient. When people talk to me, they always ask me what kind of foods they should be eating, because there is a lot of confusion out there and we usually don't know which one of these, all these different foods to choose. And so I would like to give you some information that's important about the nutrients. Now, the nutrients that we need, the third nutrient, will be the fat. And the fat is really a nutrient, or maybe I should say a nutrient group, that is very, very important. And in this area, people really make a lot of mistakes because there is some information out there, but usually we don't always get it right. Now, let's have a look at three different groups of fats. The first group that we're interested in are the neutral fats. The neutral fats are saturated and non-saturated fats, and also the triglycerides enter into this group. The triglycerides are the fats in our body. Then we have the phosphoric lipids. Phosphoric lipids is a fatty acid that we will find in lecithin and also in flaxseed. And then we have the third group that's important, and that's the cholesterol. Now, the cholesterol is always produced in a liver. And that's why it's very interesting to see when you look at these bottles of, let's say, peanut butter, for example, it says cholesterol-free. Doesn't really make much sense. Of course, many people don't know that cholesterol is made in the liver, but peanuts don't have no liver, so automatically there could be no cholesterol in it. No animal products, no plant products have any cholesterol in them unless it's put in there. So cholesterol, let's remember, is only produced in the liver. Well, let's see what the fat does in our body. We already established that in our first lecture, that the nutrients do different things. We have building nutrients, we have fuel nutrients, and we have regulating nutrients. So fat has a function as a fuel. And it's a very good fuel because fat has twice as much, or even more than twice as much, of calories as the carbohydrates. The carbohydrates only have 4 calories per gram, and fat has 9 calories per gram. So it's a very good fuel. It has a lot of energy in it, and that is the reason why animals and also human beings, we use the fat as a reserve in our body for bad times. It's better to store fat than carbohydrates because you have a more concentrated amount of calories in the fat. So it's a fuel and it's an energy reserve also. As a fuel, it does not burn as clean as carbohydrates. So as a fuel, it is really only in second place, not in first place, even though it has a lot of energy. But the carbohydrates, for example, we can use them in our body anywhere as energy. But the fat, we cannot. The fat, we cannot use it, for example, to fuel our brain. Our brain does not work on fat. It needs carbohydrates to function. And also, if you do a very heavy anaerobic exercise where you need a lot of energy, then you cannot burn the fat there because it burns much too slow. So if I do a very heavy exercise in the hope to burn fat, I'm making a big mistake, because you will not burn the fat very fast. So if you want to burn fat, you need to do light exercise. If you do very heavy exercise, you will burn carbohydrates. And if you are out of carbohydrates, which could happen in your body, that your carbohydrates reserves go very low, then the body might even start to burn muscle instead of burning the fat. So don't try to burn fat by doing very heavy exercise. Then the fat also has a very important function to do as a shock absorber, and it protects our organs. And so, as you can see here on the screen, that we need a certain amount of fats. Men need from, I always say, from 8 to about 15% fat. That's easy to remember, from 8 to 15% fat. You can see that I put some numbers here in blue and some numbers in red. Now, the red numbers, I do not accept them at all, because I believe that if you are in these red numbers, you are already in danger. You have already too much fat. And like I said before, the body will only develop extra fat if he needs to store acids and toxins. So let's not go up to these numbers. Let's stay down in the blue. Let's say you can also see that according to the age, the fat will increase a little bit. But a man should never have more than 15% of fat in his body. And women need a little bit more fat because they have different kinds of organs. And so women usually range between 20 and 25% of fat. It's important that we have this fat, and it protects us, and especially our organs. Now, we need also fat as an insulation under our skin. And that's especially in colder areas. If it's winter and you have a little bit fat under your skin, it will definitely help you to protect yourself against the cold weather. Then fat forms cell membranes. Now, what is a cell membrane? A cell membrane is just like a skin around the apple or a skin around the orange. The membrane protects the cell, and it will control the entrance and the exits of substances in and out of the cell. So the membrane has a very, very important function to fulfill. Also in the membrane, we have enzymes in there. And these enzymes work like doorkeepers. They will allow substances to come in and substances to go out, and others that they don't want to let through, they won't let it through. For example, you have a little virus coming on there, knocking on the door, and there comes that enzyme running and says, oh, you're a virus, you're not going to come in here. So you can already see that healthy cell membranes have to do quite a bit with our immune system, with our overall health to fight diseases. Now, if we eat a lot of saturated fats, then we will get like very inflexible and membranes that can easily break and get damaged. They're not very flexible. So we really want to use some non-saturated fats, which are the plant fats, to produce good membranes. Then also, fat is a building block of hormones and vitamins. Very important too, because these substances have a lot to do also with a good health. And so we need some good fat to produce vitamins and hormones. Also, the fat plays a role in the intercellular communication. Now, we have in our body probably somewhere between 60 and 100 trillion individual cells in our body. And each one of our cells can communicate with each other cell in our body. And it's very important because cells can help each other to repair damages or do this or send nutrients or whatsoever. So a good intercellular communication is very important. And you can already see that the fats have a lot of functions to do in our body. And so if anybody tells you that we don't need no fat, don't eat no fats at all, I believe that's wrong. That's not a good idea. What we should not eat is the saturated fat, and we should try to always get non-saturated fat and in a natural form. But we will be looking into that also in a little bit more detailed way. So here I got some of the fats that we always hear about, but usually we don't really know what it means. We got the saturated fat. We got mono non-saturated fat. We got poly non-saturated fat. We got trans fats, and we got triglycerides. Now, you can see here already why they're called triglycerides, because tri means three. And you can see that they have 1, 2, 3 arms. If you are a little bit interested in chemics, the black part in the center is carbon, and the white parts here, the white balls, are hydrogen molecules, and the red balls are oxygen molecules. So you can see that fat doesn't have a lot of oxygen in there. And that has quite a bit of influence with the way of burning these fuel. But let's go one by one, and let's have a look what all these now mean so that we get a better understanding. Here we got the saturated fat. Saturated fat, as we all know, comes from animals, right? That's the animal fat. Now, at room temperature, we also know that animal fat, like smalt from the pigs or butter from the milk, all these fats are usually solid at room temperature. And the reason is that they have a straight molecule. See, this is a straight molecule here. And if you have straight molecules like this, and you pack one on top of the other, you can pack them pretty tight, and you will have a solid substance at the end. So these are the animal fats, and they are compact at room temperature, and they are really not very good for us to eat. We should try to stay away from these fats. Then we have the mono non-saturated and poly non-saturated fat. Now, the non-saturated fats, as I said already before, are the plant fats, the plant oils. Let's say it that way, because they are oils. And why are they oils? Because you can see that this molecule is like kind of bent. Now, if I bend my arm, and I got all my arms bent, and I want to pack them into one area, you can imagine that's not very, you can't really pack them very tight, so there will always be space between them because they are bent. And so that's the reason why the oils are liquid and not solid. Then you can see here where you see this arrow, in this area here, there is one of these white balls missing. Now, these white balls represent the hydrogen. So there is a hydrogen missing. And if there's only one hydrogen missing, then we call it a mono non-saturated fat. And if we have two hydrogens missing there, we call it a poly non-saturated fat. Now, let me see what I got here in these group. All right, now these group, of course, are the oils, and the best oil that I can think of is the olive oil, the cold press olive oil. And I think I want to speak about that a little bit here. When we use, we should only use cold press oils to start with. We'll get into that a little bit later too. And one of the best oils that we can use is the cold press extra virgin olive oil. Now, what they do is when they get the olives, they put them in the press and then they just squeeze them, and whatever oil comes out, that's the cold press extra virgin olive oil. But then there is still some oil in these olive mass that's left over, and now they start to heat it up to get more oil out of it. And that's then called 100% olive oil. But this has been heated up. And we will be speaking about the problem of heating up oils. So it's the 100% olive oil. It has been heated up. And then they still have some oil in these pressed out olives. And what they do then is they break it apart and they mix it with solvents. And then they heat it again. And with these solvents, they still get a little bit more of oil out, and that's called then olive oil. So olive oil has not only been heated up, but it also contains solvents. It contains chemicals, and that's definitely something that we never want to use. Well, so much about the olive oil. Now, let's go back to the unsaturated fats. When you remember the band, where it is band, there is a hydrogen missing. And where that hydrogen is missing, oxygen can get in there. And if oxygen gets in there, it will oxidize. And it will start to produce free radicals. And that is very bad for our health. But you might have noticed that you hardly see any rancid oils or fats anymore, do you? When have you seen the last time a rancid fat or oil? Well, industries has figured out a process that is very bad for our health, but that's very good for the oil because it will not get rancid anymore. We'll get to that too. Now, the polyunsaturated fat that we have in seeds, as long as it is in the seed or in, let's say, in an avocado, you got a lot of fat too. So as long as the fat is in its original place, it will not oxidize in there because in the seeds or fruits or wherever we find this oil, we have antioxidants in there. And these antioxidants are like vitamin E and C and A. And they will avoid the oxidation process of the fat. But if we extract the fat now from a seed or from the olive, then we would have to increase about 200 times the amount of vitamins that we need to protect this oil. And nobody's going to do that because that would be much too expensive. So once the oil is extracted, it is very, let's say, very sensitive to oxygen. It can very easily get rancid. And if the oil starts to produce not antioxidants, it produces free radicals, then these free radicals have a real bad influence on our health because it will produce aging, it will produce inflammations and cancer and liver disorders and arteriosclerosis, which are heart problems and all kinds of health problems that are related to the fats. And this is very important that we understand these issues here. Now, if we have saturated fat, which is the fat from animals, and we heat it up, then it will very, very fast produce free radicals because it is not protected by the vitamins that are in seeds. And if we heat up an unsaturated fat, now this is an oil, a plant fat, an unsaturated fat, if we heat it up for 2 hours at 300 degrees, then it will produce liver ailments in experimental animals, and also it will produce cardiovascular lesions. That's something that we suffer from nowadays because we eat all these heated up fats. And we do not only heat up the fats in the production and the extraction of the oils, we also heat it up later on because we still cook with it. Now, all fats at 360 degrees heated up for 2 hours will produce serious liver ailments, and this is an investigation done by Dr. Trickler in 1990. So heated fat is really bad news for us. The triunsaturated fatty acid will undergo auto-oxidation 10,000 times faster than mono non-saturated fatty acid. Heat-extracted oil is heated at 400 degrees for 2 hours. So if you just heat the oil at 300 degrees for 2 hours, then we will already produce antioxidants, free radicals. Now, in the factory where they extract the oil, they heat it up with 400 degrees for 2 hours. And so that will definitely produce cancerogenic free radicals and all kinds of problems that we will have with our food, with our health later on. Then it's not only heated up in the factory. We also take the fat home, like corn oil, for example. It's always heat extracted. We take that corn oil home, or vegetable oil, whatever you want to call it, and then we put it in our frying pan or in our cook pot, and because we want to stir fry our onions and whatever else we want to cook with, so we put that oil in the pan, and then we put it on a red disc, and a red disc has about a temperature of 1,110 degrees. So a red disc really gets hot. You don't have to keep that oil in that pan or pot for very long in order to start to produce free radicals. But that's not all. We also like to go to all these fast food restaurants because we just love these French fries, right? Now imagine, the French fries are cooked, deep fried in very hot fat. And this fat, they will keep it for days and days. And they even have now chemicals that will clean that fat to make it look cleaner again. Well, you know, when you go to a fast food place and they ask you whether you want a big or small portion of French fries, they should rather ask you whether you want a big amount or a small amount of cancer, because that's really what they're selling you there. So these are things, friends, that we need to be very careful with, because we will definitely end up with health problems, with cardiovascular problems, liver problems, with cancer, and all these good things that we don't really need and want. So now here I'm talking about extracted oil. Now even if you get good cold-pressed virgin olive oil, that's an extracted oil. It's still bad news for our body. It's bad news for our health. Even that, we should try to avoid it. What's the problem with extracted fat, really? Even if it's cold pressed, and if it's the best olive oil. Well, the problem is, or let me start like this. If you take, for example, a little bowl, take a little plastic bowl, put some hot water in there, and then pour some oil on top. And then take, let's say, a dish or whatever you want to, and put it in that water and put it out again. And what will you see? Well, you will see, yes, that the plate is covered with oil. Whatever you put in there and pull it out is covered with oil. Now, imagine your stomach being this little plastic bowl with that water and oil in there. Now, you take, for example, your salad, and you put some good olive oil over your salad. Well, it's a bad idea to do, because now the salad gets covered with the oil, and it gets into our stomach. See, the problem is that the oil, we will not dissolve it in our stomach. Oil is digested in the small intestines. That's where the bile salts will react and dissolve the fat. Now, if you have your food covered with oil, with fat, then our gastric juices cannot really digest it very well, because they can't get to it. And then, once that food is released into the small intestine, then it has not been very well digested in the stomach. And the intestines can't do the part of the stomach. But we have another, we can understand probably then that we won't get all the nutrients out of the food that we could get out of it if we would digest it properly. But another problem that we have with these extracted fat now, these oil that gets into our small intestine, then there we have the bile salts who will start to dissolve it, and then our body can absorb it, and it will go directly into our blood. And what it will do is it will cover our blood vessels with oil, and it will cover our red blood cells with oil. And our red blood cells, they fly around, rush around, but with a tremendous speed in our blood vessels, and they never touch each other. Why don't they touch each other? Because they all have the same negative electric charge. They have minus charge, and the same polarity will reject each other. It will not attract each other, right? So they can't touch. But now you have the fat coming into your blood, and then this fat will cover your red blood cells. And now they are insulated. Now the negative charge cannot get through that fat anymore, and boom, there you got all your red blood cells sticking together in long lines, and you get, instead of having some good flowing blood, after a while you got a hamburger in your blood, but not good separated red blood cells anymore. And what happens then is you can't absorb enough oxygen, and it won't even get into the blood, and if it would, also then the blood cells, they can't pick it up very well because they're covered. So you are really going to have a good problem with the oxygen absorption, and that's very important. On our lecture on air, we will be speaking about the problems that we will have where we don't get enough oxygen, especially into our individual cells. Now, fat in whole foods. All right, so here comes now the solution, because we do need fat. So don't say you can do without fat. Yes, we do need fat, but not extracted fat and no saturated fat. That's not made for us. But we need the fat in its natural state. Like, for example, an avocado has a lot of fat. Wonderful. But it also has a lot of protein, and so we don't want to eat too much avocado. We might eat a quarter of an avocado, hopefully no more in a day. But we also have fat in nuts and seeds. And we also have a lot of fat in grains. For example, if we eat whole grains, corn has a lot of fat. That's where corn oil is made from. And oats, I believe, has even more fat than corn. So if you eat whole oat meal, then you'll get a lot of fat with that too. So why is fat in its natural form better? Because it will, the whole grains or whole foods, whatever, they will start to digest in our stomach, and then they will go into the small intestine, but the fat is inside these foods. So the bile salts cannot just dissolve it and set it into our into our blood. So now the fat gets all the way down to our intestinal tract to the end, and there we have a system that's called the portal vein. And the portal vein is a special duct that will lead the blood directly to the liver, from the intestines to the liver. And so all the nutrients that are absorbed in the lower part of our intestinal tract, they will get directly into the liver, and then it will be metabolized there. So that way, the fat will not get into our blood directly and disturb the functioning of our blood. Now, here we have another thing. Here we got the trans fats. Now, we all know the word trans fats. Few of you know the word cis fat. Cis is the original form of the oil. Cis really means this side, and trans means on the other side. We have heard the word ciskaya and transkaya, which means this side of the river and the other side of the river. So, cis and trans. Now, we have here a trans fat. This here is the cis form. That's the original form. And here is the trans fat. As you can see already, the cis form, the original oil form, is bent. And the trans form is almost straight. What's happening here now is that, see, we have in the cis form, we got two hydrogens up here on top. We got two hydrogens there. And now we heat this oil up, and then one of the hydrogens will come to the other side. That's why it's called trans fat, on the other side. So this hydrogen comes to the bottom, to the other side. It might sound like it's not very important and really a little thing, but it is a big thing. In fact, trans fat is so cancerogenic that we should really never use it and never have anything with trans fat. And it turns into trans fat by heating it up. So this heated up fat, we should never use it. In the state of New York, for example, they got a law now that it is illegal to sell any kinds of foods that contain trans fats. So I think we understand this issue here. We do not want to heat up fats because they will definitely start to produce cancer in us. Now, here is another thing that's called hydrogenated fat. We all have heard about hydrogenated fat. What could that mean? Well, I told you already that the oils in their natural form, they are liquid and they are mono or poly non-saturated fats, and that means that there is missing either one or two or more hydrogens. Now, we want to turn oil into margarine because it's easier to spread it on a piece of bread. And that's really why they hydrogenate the oil. What they do is in the factory, they press a hydrogen into that little hole in the oil, and then you can see here the molecule becomes straight. It becomes solid. But there is one problem with it here. We have a double carbon bond here. Now this is saturated or partially saturated fat. There may still be a little hole somewhere where there is a hydrogen missing. But we have these saturated now or partially saturated fat, but we have these double carbon bond there. Now, whether you understand it or not, it doesn't really matter. But remember that hydrogenated fat is a fat that does not exist in nature. God has never made hydrogenated fat. It doesn't exist. And because it does not exist, for this reason also, there is no enzyme that can digest or break down this fat. So these kind of fat cannot be broken down. And because human beings use the same digestive enzymes as, for example, a virus or fungus or whatever, as any kind of other germ there, we use all the same digestive enzymes. And so if we don't have no enzymes, the bacteria doesn't have no enzymes either to digest hydrogenated fat. And that's why it will never turn rancid. It won't turn rancid because no one can digest it. But now, what is your body going to do if you eat this stuff? Because this is usually the margarine. So what happens now if you eat margarine? Well, the body can do anything with it. What would you do at home if you have something in your house that you can't use for nothing? What would you do with it? But you can't get it out of the house because Daddy doesn't want you to throw it away. So what are you going to do with that thing? Well, you will store it somewhere as far away as possible where it will not disturb you in everyday actions. That's what you're going to do. And the body does exactly the same thing. The body will deposit this fat in areas where it is not as much in the way. And you know where he deposits that fat? He will deposit it usually in these areas here of the upper parts of your legs. And then you get this wonderful thing called cellulitis. And then you run around with all these stuff moving there. That's all margarine that's moving out there. And now you start doing exercise because you want to burn it. But you can't burn it because that's stuff just sitting there. The body cannot metabolize it. So that's the problem that we have if we eat margarine. So saturated or hydrogenated fat. What's the difference now here with the saturated and the hydrogenated fat? Saturated fat is what, let's say, butter, for example. Or let me go to the next slide. I might have it here a little bit. Yeah, here it's a little bit clearer. This is a saturated fat, and this is a hydrogenated fat. See, there is a hydrogen, there is still a hydrogen missing, but it's straight now. So this is a margarine. And you know, then sometimes people come to me and they say, well, Peter, tell me something. I really want to have some kind of butter on my bread because I don't want to eat my bread without anything. So what would you say? What is less dangerous to eat? Should I rather eat butter or should I rather eat margarine? What would you do? I said, well, that's a wonderful question because really these two fats give us the opportunity to choose how we want to die. And that's a great way because, you know, if you want to die, you can either go to the butter and that will produce heart attacks. So that will be a very fast death where that would not let you know before. There's usually no suffering before it. I mean, you may have some angina, but usually there's no big problems. You just get your heart attack and you're done, see. Or you can decide, well, maybe I want to die a little bit slower and I want to suffer a little bit with it. Well, then eat the margarine because that will produce cancer in your body. And we know about these things pretty clearly because in the 1950s they figured out that if people were eating a lot of butter, that they were getting a lot of heart problems and heart diseases and strokes and heart attacks. And so the industry decided, oh, now let's make some margarine. That is not doing the same, not provoking the same problem. And that was true, because the heart attacks and the strokes really came down when people started changing from butter to margarine. But on the other hand, the cancer rate was going up in the same way, because now people were simply changing heart attacks for cancer. So you got to wait. You can choose whatever you want to. Now, if you want to know what I choose is, I choose not to eat any of all these nor extracted fat nor animal fats. I don't use them at all. And that's the best way to stay healthy and not have to worry about all these diseases that people out in the world are worried about. And it doesn't matter how much money you got, you're going to die anyway. So it's just a matter whether you live healthy your life, and whether you live a long life or a short life. So there are two fatty acids that are considered to be essential. Now, I've already told you before that essential in nutrition always means something that our body cannot produce. And the essential acids that fatty acids that our body cannot produce, because they have a very long carbon chain, are linoleic or linolenic acid. Now, that's very complicated. Let's call them omega-6 and omega-3 fats. That's much easier. Now, the omega-6 fats, we will find them in all vegetable oils. All the regular vegetable oils we find, they are omega or contain omega-6. But the omega-3, where some people say, oh, you have to eat fish in order to get your omega-3, well, that's not really true, because there is plenty of omega-3 in flaxseed, and it's also in walnuts, and in greens, and in tofu. So there are other sources that we can use for omega-3. Now, the interesting thing is that we need a relationship of 4:1 for our oils that we take in, which means we should get 4 parts of omega-6 and 1 part of omega-3. This is very important, because omega-3 is used for a lot of other things that our body will produce, and so it's very important. And if we get more omega-6, then it will eliminate the action of the omega-3, except with one oil, and that's the extra virgin olive oil. If we get more omega-6 from extra virgin olive oil, if we get more than 4 parts, that will not eliminate the action of omega-3. So that's one of the big advantages that we have with using olive oil. But remember, extracted oils are always bad news. So if you use it very sparingly, and be careful. Just be careful with it. Now, the omega-3, we can get it very well from vegetables, from green leafy vegetables. They have a lot of omega-3 oil in it. And also we have it in flaxseed. And I always recommend people to use 1 tablespoonful of ground flaxseed a day in order to get enough omega-3. And then if you eat good green vegetables, leafy vegetables, you can even cook them. The oil won't get out of it. And that's a good source. And then we also have a good source of omega-3 in walnuts. But the problem with the walnuts is that they are also very high in omega-6 oils. So they would not help us to better the relationship 4:1. because they already have too much omega-6. And then in tofu, we also will find omega-3 oil. But what's the problem with tofu? You remember our first lecture where I spoke about protein, that high protein is one of our worst problems that we have nowadays. In fact, I just remember here, have you ever seen this movie Forks Over Knives, where there's this Dr. Collins, I think is his name, where he did a lot of research, and he tells us there that skim milk is worse than whole fat milk. Why is that worse? Because the bigger problem in the milk is not the fat, but the protein. That's the biggest problem in the milk. And so if you take the fat out, you will automatically increase the content of protein. And that's why skim milk really is worse than whole fat milk. And by the way, the excess of protein is known to produce cancer. Now, when we use the fats, or when we eat fats, we should see that we do not get more than 10 to 20% of calories from our fat. That would be a very good relationship. Make sure you don't get more, I would even say don't get more than 10% of your calories from fat. Then you would be really in a good situation, and you would have to worry very little about heart attacks or things like that. Now, we shouldn't get more than 30 to 50 grams of fat a day. And you can imagine if you go out there and you have 3 slices of pizza, imagine the amount of fat that is in that cheese, because there is most of that cheese is pure fat. Now, let's see what else we got here. We need about 3 to 5 grams of omega-6, and we need about 12 to 20 grams of we need omega-3, we need 3 to 5 grams, and omega-6, we need about 12 to 20 grams. That's calculated on a person that needs 2,000 calories a day. I would really forget about all these numbers because they make life much too complicated. Just try not to eat any animal fats, no saturated fats, and try to stay away from all extracted fats and get your fats just from natural foods, like, for example, avocados and the 4 nuts that you can have a day, and from like oatmeal, which contains, oat grouts contain a lot of fat, cornmeal, whole cornmeal, and things like that. Let's get our fats there, and then we would not really have to worry about getting too much fat. And then if we have our heaped tablespoonful of ground flaxseed a day, we will get almost enough of the omega-3 that we need. Then have some greens once in a while, and maybe a walnut, and then you don't have to worry about that. And the omega-6, we don't have to worry about that at all, because it's most fats that we get naturally are omega-6 already. So let's not worry about that. Let's not try to get these amounts and drive ourselves crazy by how to make the numbers. Now, the problem that we have here in the U.S. is that the calories that the average person consumes in this country, 45% of these calories come from fat. And I believe this is an older number. This is a few years old already. I believe right now that Americans probably get 50% or more of their calories from fat. And that's a tremendous amount of fat, and that will produce very, very serious ailments, and it will produce cancer, and it will produce also heart diseases and cardiovascular diseases. And I would really really recommend you stay away from saturated fat and stay away from extracted fats. If you do use any extracted fats, they have to be cold pressed. And you will never find a cold pressed corn oil. So that is not in our list anymore. That is allowed. And let's make sure that we stay away from this stuff. I wanted to mention one more thing here that's also important. You might have noticed that you can sometimes buy like sunflower seed oil or some other special oils. There might even be flaxseed oil that people like to use, and they take, some people even take oil in the mornings just on an empty stomach because they think it's good. Well, I have already told you that it's not good and what it does, because it'll just make your blood sticky. But if you buy these special oils that are usually also very expensive, then just look at the label. And sometimes it says partially hydrogenated. Now, if you get sunflower oil that is partially hydrogenated, you know what? They put this partially hydrogenated oil in there because as long as there's just a little bit in there, no bacteria will touch the oil anymore because they can't digest it. And so if the bacteria does not touch that oil anymore, then I think we should not be touching it either. So just make sure that your oil is always, if you use it, that it's always 100% cold press and that it is not partially or at all hydrogenated, because then we are going to have a real problem, because the hydrogenated fat, remember, we cannot digest it. Well, I think I want to stop here because our time is over, and we will see you for our next lecture, and we'll have our third and last lecture on nutrition.